Welcome back, Pixel Nation Comics Division here. How the hell are you? Well, I finally got around to getting to my Shazam review, so here we go. I'll be honest with you folks, going into this movie, I didn't exactly have a lot of high expectations. The DCEU films haven't exactly had a good track record, much like the Ford Pinto. For all the younger members of the audience, that was an old people joke. For the most part, Wonder Woman was pretty good, and I haven't seen Aquaman yet. Has anyone actually seen Aquaman? I mean, after all, it's Aquaman. Who cares about Aquaman? Maybe Eglinton does. But he cares about Aquaman. And I'll be honest, my only hope was that it was better than Captain Marvel. And fortunately, it was! Which, let's be honest, not exactly like it set a very high bar or anything, because it didn't. All Shazam had to do was make a flawed yet likable character, make him struggle a bit. You know, typical hero's journey shit. It was actually a really entertaining and enjoyable movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, I highly suggest you do. So, before we get too deep into things, all I have to say is, there be spoilers ahead, yar! By no means is Shazam perfect. It's pretty much a straight up superhero movie. It honestly doesn't take any risks. It doesn't break any new ground. And it's pretty much a paint by numbers hero's journey. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. What we get in return is a fun, enjoyable, and entertaining film. It's the polar opposite of Captain Marvel, which was a dull and lifeless Mary Sue. There's two major themes, the hero's journey itself, and what is family. In a lot of ways, Billy Batston's journey is very similar to that of Peter Parker's. Both of them are teenagers who have been granted superpowers. They both embark on a journey of discovery of their abilities, and ultimately, the responsibility that comes along with it. After all, with great power comes great responsibility. And looking back at the Spider-Man films, I have to say, I think Shazam actually does it better. Don't hate me. One of the biggest criticisms I have about comic book movies is, why can't they just go and adapt a storyline? Well, Shazam actually does it. It was mostly adapted from Jeff Johns' New 52 version of Shazam, and it does a pretty damn good job of sticking to the source material, with some minor and major alterations. The biggest one was Dr. Thaddeus Sivana as the antagonist rather than Black Adam. If you're not familiar with who Black Adam is, think of him as a corrupt version of Shazam. So the oversimplified version of the plot goes a little like this. Billy Batson, played by Asher Angel, is granted the powers of Shazam. He goes through the hero's journey with the help of his foster brother slash best friend, Freddie Freeman, played by Jack Dylan Grazer. As the movie progresses, Billy learns his powers and struggles to become a hero. Meanwhile, the antagonist, Dr. Thaddeus Sivana, played by Mark Strong, goes through a journey of his own. But this is the journey of becoming a villain, as he is further corrupted by the sins. A group of 7 demonic entities based off the 7 deadly sins that possess his right eye. Protagonist and antagonist clash in a final showdown where Billy gets some help from his foster siblings in the form of the Thunder Kids. Good triumphs over evil, the end. Oh, and there's also a lot of other fun stuff that happens in between. Now, I'm going to start off by talking about the things that I really liked. The movie was really well casted. Child actors can be a huge risk for a film, and they did a great job of making them feel like actual kids rather than little adults without overdoing it. There's a really funny montage of Freddy testing Billy's powers by doing really stupid and dangerous shit that only teenage boys would do. Things like trying to cut off Billy's hand with a hatchet and lighting him on fire.
This is proof of authenticity. Super strength. Electricity manipulation. Hyperspeed.
Also, Faith Herman, who plays Darla Dudley, steals every scene she's in. The writers did a great job of making the movie feel like it lived in the DCEU without focusing too much on world building. The presence of Batman and Superman can be felt without relying on the other movies. Overall, it's a nice self-contained story. In a lot of ways, the movie kind of reminded me of Deadpool, where they poke fun at superhero tropes. In the third act, there's this really funny scene where Billy's facing down with Sivana, and there's like this huge gap between the two of them, and Sylvana is doing his villainous monologuing, but Billy can't hear him because they're so far apart. It's actually pretty well done. The movie stays away from identity politics and wokeness. There's a couple of scenes where they could have pulled a Captain Marvel, but didn't. Thank God. There's like one wokeness joke that worked pretty well in the context of the scene. The scene takes place shortly after Billy has taken on the form of Shazam for the very first time, and he returns back to the foster home to go and get Freddy's help, since he's kind of knowledgeable about superheroes in this world. So they're going and testing out his powers when they hear this scream and they see a man trying to mug a woman. Being that Billy is still new to the Shazam form, he awkwardly tries to help, not realizing that the woman has already pepper sprayed her assailant. He then offers to go and retrieve her purse for her, but she still has it because the mugger never got a chance to take it. He then goes and makes this awkward joke about being woke because a woman in current year can go and defend herself. It was funny because it really did add to the awkwardness of the situation, and that was pretty much the extent of it. The movie does a pretty good job of setting up the antagonist Sylvana. He actually has a motivation, believe it or not. In a lot of ways, his own journey mirrors that of Billy's, but in the opposite direction. Though I believe the movie could have spent a little bit more time developing Sylvana's character, it's light years better than what Marvel has been doing. The opening scene is about a very young Sylvana in a car with his father and older brother. Now, it's immediately established that Sylvana is a runt and has daddy issues. Yeah, I know that sounds kinda lame, but in the context of the film, it works pretty well. He is then summoned to the Rock of Eternity by the Shazam Wizard, played by Jimin Hoon Soo. You know, that guy who was in Captain Marvel, as well as the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie? You know, that guy. So anyway, the Wizard's looking for a new champion to transfer his power to. Sylvana is then tempted by the 7 deadly sins, which leads him to be rejected by the Shazam Wizard, and then sending him back to the car. Sylvana, desperately trying to open the door to the car, trying to get back to the Rock of Eternity, causes his father to spin out and ultimately leads to an accident, which ejects his father from the car, causing him to be paralyzed. This turns Thaddeus' desire to be accepted into resentment, which is the driving force behind his character. So when we catch up with Sylvana in the present, he's been spending his whole life trying to open a door back to the Rock of Eternity, which he eventually does and confronts the Shazam Wizard. He then goes and frees the 7 deadly sins, and they grant him superhuman abilities, while they possess his right eye. With this newfound power, Sylvana then goes and confronts his father in a boardroom where he brutally murders the fuck out of everyone. And this is where we earn the PG-13 rating of the movie. Now, Billy, on the other hand, is an orphan who has been trying to track down his estranged mother. He is placed into the foster home of Rosa and Victor Vasquez, played by Marta Milans and Cooper Andrews. Now, if Cooper Andrews sounds familiar, he plays Jerry on The Walking Dead.
Jerry, would you excuse us?
You need me? Holler. I keep in hollering range. Deuces.
Where Sylvana has been trying to find acceptance from his family, Billy, on the other hand, is independent, self-reliant, and a bit selfish. Translation, he doesn't need anyone or their help, which leads him to immediately rejecting the acceptance of his foster family. However, this all changes when Billy goes to defend Freddy from a couple of bullies, which they then chase him down into the subway station. He manages to escape on a subway car and then is magically transported to the dying Shazam Wizard, who then chooses Billy to be the champion. Now, before this turns into a complete dumbfest, there are a couple of things I want to point out that are really hilarious. Like the scene where they go to the convenience store to go and buy some beer.
I'd like to purchase some of your finest beer, please.
As well as the scenes where he's trying to learn how to fly. Now, here's the stuff that's not so great, and honestly, the first one is more of a nitpick than anything else. Now, in Act 2, Billy is showing off his powers like a street performer when Freddy goes and confronts him about something that happened early in the film. An arc of lightning accidentally goes and strays off and hits a bus, blowing out a tire and sending it partially off a bridge. Yep. That would be the scene. Thank you very much, guy who's editing this in the future, who is me. Anyway, Billy then goes and tries to save the bus from falling off the bridge. But it comes off really awkward, not in a good way. Rather than jumping up on top of the bridge and pulling the bus back to safety, he waits for it to fall where he can catches it with his bare hands. on the cracking glass, which should have shattered, resulting in the death or severe injury of the passengers. Okay, thanks again, future me. What are you trying to do? Pad the runtime? We're already over 10 minutes. Though it was nice seeing a superhero acting heroically, this scene could have been handled a little bit better. Okay, moving right along here. For the most part, the special effects are pretty good, with the exception of the CGI for the 7 Deadly Sins. Now, this shit kept pulling me out of the frickin' movie. Good CG should blend seamlessly with the footage. A really good example of this is the prawns from District 9. Now, Neil Blomkamp did a great job with this movie. Everything looked like it belonged there and nothing really pulled me out. And this film was made in 2009. Seriously. It's a freaking decade later. Why are we not doing CG better now? Now, another thing that's really been kind of annoying me with this film is the fight scenes. It suffers what's been going on for the last decade in Hollywood, which is that shaky cam quick cut nonsense. It makes it very hard to take in what is going on and ultimately makes the fights kind of forgettable. Now, this isn't all of the fights, but it's quite a few of them. This isn't anything new. Marvel does the exact same bullshit. It kinda needs to stop. And finally, we get to the final showdown between Billy and Sylvana. Now, one thing I do have to point out that they did a good job of is they did try and add stakes. There's a Ferris wheel full of passengers that gets damaged and starts beginning leaning to one side and eventually is going to collapse. However, there's no tension or sense of urgency, so there doesn't feel like there's an imminent threat. And that really kind of undermines the tension of the scene. And when you throw in the Thunder Kids to help out, like I said, it really just kind of undermines all the tension. They could have done a better job at building that up, making it seem like there was more of a threat, people's lives were at stake. But it didn't happen. Now I have to point out this is way, way better than what we got with Captain Marvel, but it just could have been done better. Also at the end, there's this really funny scene where Darla's still in her Shazam form and she runs up to Santa Claus and says, "I've been a good girl all year long," which is funny because she manages to pull off the mentality of a 7-year-old. Overall, I have to say I really enjoyed the film. It was very fun. I had a good time, definitely enjoyable entertainment, better than Captain Marvel. So folks, did you go and see Shazam? Let me know if you did and what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Alright, I'm exhausted and I gotta wrap this one up, so you know the routine. Smash that like button. If you didn't like this video, then give me a hate like instead. Subscribe if you're new. Find me on all the social medias such as Gab and Twitter. And I'll see you next time, folks.